Let us explore the sensation of need. Need, the most popular, the most common sensation, yet the most underestimated, the most slandered, the most misunderstood. The extreme of need, that is, need which has remained unsatiated, is suffering. We call suffering the need which has not been satisfied for a period of time. Need, suffering, is nothing more than the conscious interpretation of existing. To feel need is to feel existence. And what does this sensation tell us? That existence is a lacking, an absence. An absence of what? The only way the mind can understand this absence, since it is absent, is one of the absence of the absolute. In other words, it is an absence of being in an infinite, in unceasing becoming. All need is an expression of a desire to persist, to self-maintain, to survive. And yet, sometimes we feel need for things that threaten this existence. And these we call wants. In effect, what they are is a superseding, a surpassing, overcoming, an inebriation of the mind, so as to forego need, so as to ignore need, so as to replace need with a want. This is why sex is such an overpowering sensation. Sex in itself is felt as a desire, and yet it is not life-threatening. One can, in fact, live an entire lifetime without having sex at all. But sex, the desire of sex, is not a need. It is a want. It is a want which is promoted through inebriation, through a chemical insistence which numbs the mind and at times forces it into a state of madness, an intoxication, a frenzy, which contradicts the original needs of survival. This is why the sexual want is dependent upon chemical inebriation. This is what the sexual impulse is. It's a sexual inebriation which placates, numbs the mind, intoxicates it to the extent that it can even go against its primal needs and act in ways that threaten its existence. By manipulating the sexual urge, we can see how modern marketing and politics functions. In effect, what modern marketing and politics do is they manufacture wants, sometimes feeding upon primordial needs, at other times contradicting them by manipulating the sexual urge, the desire to fornicate, to release this excess energy, this libidinal energy. Noam Chomsky spoke about manufacturing consent in democratic systems. And I would say that manufacturing consent is based upon manufacturing wants, where no wants are present. The way to manufacture wants is to connect certain products with a need, to symbolically connect them, to abstract a need in the form of a product, and then to sell it to the individual as a want which can fulfill a need. But beyond the manipulation of need, the exploitation of need by those who understand what need is and how to manipulate it and how to connect it to products and symbols, and how to manufacture wants related to these primal needs. We can say that need is a manifestation of existence itself. To need is to exist. To exist is a state of need. Consciousness, in fact, is the awakening to this state of existence. When we become conscious, we become conscious of our needs, of our lack. We become conscious of our absence. This absence can be called the absence of being, or the absence of an absolute, the absence of a God, the absence of a thing, the absence of a one. The absolute can take on any term you want, and yet it is always an absence. For the sake of argument, let's call it the absence of being at this point. So this absence of being is nothing more than the sensation of becoming. That is, the sensation of constant interaction, the constant fluidity and flux of existence, with no inert point, no static point, no certainty, no absolute, no one, no singularity. It is the coming to terms with this fact, the sensation of becoming, the sensation of a process with no end, which is the epitome of contentment, or what Nietzsche called the attainment of the status of an overman, which is not a domination of others or of the world, but it is a domination of one's own resentment. Ressentiment, taken from the French. The resentment of one's own existence and everything that makes this existence possible. In effect, to love oneself, to embrace oneself, is to embrace everything that makes it possible. And this includes this absence, and this includes this need, and this includes the possibility of this suffering. It is the incapacity of most, the vast majority in fact, to attain this state of acceptance of self, which produces the necessity, the need for gods, for absolutes, for statics, for certainties, for finalities, for resolutions. In all dogmas of monism, Judeo-Christianity included, or any dogma proposing an absolute, we see this hatred of existence as an everlasting flow, this everlasting fluidity towards nothing really, towards a unresolved state, this continuous interactivity with no final destination. In order to come to terms with existence, one has to come to terms with the voyage. One must enjoy the journey towards a destination which will never be reached. And this most people cannot accept. And this is why they must construct such things as utopias, God, ideals, which promise a final destination, an end to need and suffering. If you analyze most of these dogmas, you will see that they all are nihilistic in the sense that they all promise an end to need, an end to suffering, an end to activity, an end to fluidity, an end to uncertainty, an end to conflict. And this is seductive to most weak individuals. This makes Christianity and dogmas that preach such ends very powerful, very intoxicating. And this is why Christianity infects always the weakest, the most feeble, the most needy. We can find in all solutions to a problem that does not exist, since suffering and need are existence itself. We can find this desire to end this final solution, a solution that will answer to all suffering. It will end all suffering. It will correct nature, in fact. It will correct the fact that nature is this absence of an absolute. We'll find in it, I say, this promise of a nullification. And this is why in most Judeo-Christian systems, which feeds upon need, we find this nihilistic promise, this promise of an absolute.